I've had paranormal experiences all my life, and over time, I stopped thinking it was the places I lived that were haunted and started believing it was me that attracted them. It started one quiet night, shortly after taking my infant son out of his jolly jumper. I was in my bedroom, carefully removing him from the harness. The room was dim, the moonlight spilling through the blinds, creating long, strange shadows that seemed to shift as I moved. That's when I heard it. A loud, violent banging, followed by the metallic rattle of a chain. My heart froze, and I could feel my pulse thumping in my ears. I picked up my son, clutching him close, trying not to shake, and slowly backed toward the living room. And then I saw it, the apparatus from the door frame, swinging violently, metal clanging against the wood, the adjustable chain thrashing through the air. It was as if some invisible presence, invisible but angry, was holding it, smashing the door frame, methodically, rhythmically, relentlessly. I wanted to scream, but no sound would come out. I stood there, paralyzed, my son pressed against my chest, and watched as the swinging continued. Every clang echoing through the house, each one louder than the last, as if the very walls were responding to it, reacting to some unseen force. 10 seconds, maybe 20. It felt like an eternity, before I finally ran, carrying my son, my mind racing, my breath short and sharp, my legs trembling, the heavy, suffocating energy of that house pressing against my chest, against my mind. We moved out soon after, but the memory, it stayed. Late at night, even now, I can feel that same pressure, that same presence, lingering in the corners of my mind, waiting, watching. And I often wonder, was it the house? Or was it me? Carrying something unseen, from place to place, following me, waiting, always just behind me, in the shadows. There were other nights when I could feel it even without the banging. A presence in the room, something shifting, moving just out of sight. I would hear footsteps when the house was empty, the creak of floorboards when no one had walked there. And sometimes I would wake in the middle of the night, feeling as if someone invisible was leaning over my bed, watching me sleep. One night I was folding laundry in the living room. My son was playing nearby, humming softly, unaware of what was in the air. And then the lights flickered, just for a moment. But in that moment, the temperature dropped, the air thickened. I felt it right behind me, breathing, watching, and I swear I saw the shadow stretch across the wall. Reaching, grasping, I clutched my son tighter, whispering prayers, words I barely remembered, hoping, praying that whatever it was would leave us alone. And then it was gone, the room, cold, silent, ordinary. But I knew it wasn't really gone, just waiting, patient, for the next moment. I've asked myself countless times, why me? Why does this follow me? Is it anger? Is it curiosity? Or something else entirely? Something beyond my understanding? Sometimes when I close my eyes, I can still see that swinging chain, the way it moved, impossibly, as if controlled by some unseen hand. And I remember the fear, the helplessness, and the way my heart threatened to burst from my chest. And then I hear the faintest whisper, a murmur, a reminder that no matter where I go, no matter how far I run, some things follow you. Always. It was early morning, around 5 or 6 a.m. My husband and I were leaving a house party, walking down a street that was closed for construction. The fog hung low over the asphalt, cold and damp, wrapping itself around us. as if the night itself was holding its breath. We were sober, alert, yet there was a strange heaviness in the air, the kind that makes your skin crawl, even when you're not sure why. And then we saw them, a woman and 3 young children, dressed in old-fashioned clothing, like pioneers from a time long forgotten. Their eyes, wide, vacant, lost, and they moved strangely, stiff, as if they weren't fully anchored to this world. They approached us slowly, cautiously, almost as if they could sense our living presence, and asked for directions to a street that didn't exist, a street I had never heard of, never seen, and had lived in this town my entire life. I remember the woman's voice, quivering, desperate, and the children staring at us, silently, their faces pale, almost translucent in the dim light of the street lamps. We tried to help, offered to guide them, but she refused, shaking her head, her eyes wide with fear, as if trusting us would somehow make her disappear. And then they turned, walking away slowly, deliberately, but their steps made no sound, and the further they moved, the more unreal they became, until eventually, they simply vanished. I froze, my husband beside me, equally shaken. We looked at each other, mouths open, but no words came, because how do you explain what you just saw, what your eyes refused to believe? Even now, I remember the sensation, an oppressive, heavy feeling in my chest, like the air itself was pressing down, like the street was holding us, captive, witnesses to something we weren't supposed to see. And as we walked the rest of the way to our car, I couldn't help but glance back, hoping to see them again. But the street was empty, silent, except for the fog curling around the street lights, swallowing everything in its path. That night, I kept thinking, were they ghosts? Lost souls trapped between centuries, searching, wondering, unable to find their way home? Or were we the intruders, trespassing into their time, intruding upon a world we weren't meant to see? And every now and then, when I walk past an empty street, early in the morning, when the fog hangs low and the air is still, I feel it. The sense of being watched, of time itself folding in on you, of shadows from the past slipping just beyond your sight. I will never forget the vacant eyes, the empty faces, the lost whispers of a world that no longer exists. And I still wonder if they're out there, waiting, still searching for the street that disappeared, and maybe waiting for us to follow. I grew up in northern Idaho, in a small town, barely 4,000 people, a quiet place, with houses that had stood for over a century, many of them worn by time, layered in history, secrets hidden in the wood, the walls, the shadows. The house I grew up in was a big blue house, one street over from Main Street, a 10-minute walk from the town's public park, where the pool shimmered in summer light. It was the kind of house that felt alive, even when empty. The floors creaked in certain spots. The wind whistled through gaps in the windows. And in the winter, when the snow piled high, the orange glow from the street lamps reflected off the clouds, casting everything in a strange, almost otherworldly light. I always loved that glow, until the night it revealed something I wasn't meant to see. My bedroom was in the back corner downstairs, the one I chose because I hated the upstairs. There were 2 large windows, one looking out into the backyard, the other into a small side yard. I had rolled over in bed, facing the side yard window, and that's when I saw it. A perfect silhouette of a man, chest up, staring in at me. I froze, my breath caught, my heart hammering in my chest. I did the thing a child does, hid under the covers, peeking just a little to see if it was still there. And when I looked, it was gone. No face, no distinctive clothing, Just the black shadow, like smoke, frozen in place. An impossible figure, standing outside a window too high for any man to reach. The next morning, I went outside to the side yard, checking for footprints, but there was nothing. No traces, no evidence anyone could have been there. It was as if the shadow had appeared and simply vanished into the air. It wasn't the first strange thing in that house. People in the family would occasionally see glimpses of a boy running outside, but nothing this close, nothing so precise, nothing so personal. I didn't tell my parents. I couldn't. Even if I had, they would have shrugged it off, saying it was just the ghost boy the house seemed to harbor. But that night, the house felt different, heavier, watching. I lay in bed, staring at the window, imagining the shadow's eyes following me, feeling its presence linger, wondering if it had ever really left. Sometimes, I would lie awake at night, hearing the faintest creak in the floor, the sound of the wind shifting against the windows, imagining the silhouette returning, standing there, silent, waiting, watching. I began to notice other things, small movements in the corner of my eye, shadows that didn't belong, the faintest whisper of a footstep when no one was around. Even the smell, a strange, musty, old wood smell, would come and disappear, leaving the air thick, heavy, unreal. I tried to convince myself it was imagination, but that silhouette, its impossible stance, its presence, would haunt me for years, even after I moved, even after the house became someone else's home. I knew, somehow, it had seen me, and I had seen it. And sometimes, when the orange glow hits the snow just right, when the clouds hang heavy in the winter sky, I swear I can see it again, standing, impossibly, outside a window, waiting for me. I was 15, sharing a room with my younger brother. It was a night like any other. At least that's what I thought. We had both settled into bed, ready to sleep. The house was silent, the kind of silence that makes every creak of the floorboard sound louder, every gust of wind against the window feel like a footstep. I remember the air being cold, almost crisp, but inside the room, something warmer, something heavier, seemed to press down on us. And then I heard it, a knock at the window. Slow, deliberate, human, not a tree branch, not the wind. A knock with intention. It made my stomach twist, a knot of fear forming that I couldn't shake. I tried to ignore it at first, convincing myself it was nothing, but it came again. Closer, sharper, more insistent. A rhythm, deliberate, almost personal. And I knew it was not the wind. It was something else. I got up slowly, heart hammering, every step feeling impossibly loud, walked to the curtains and peered through. Nothing, empty darkness, the trees swaying, the streetlights casting long shadows. But my gut told me it wasn't empty. I told my brother, it's probably just the wind. But I could see it in his eyes. He knew it wasn't. We moved to sleep in another room, shivering under blankets. Every noise amplified, every shadow, a potential threat. The next night, it wasn't the window anymore. It was the bed frame. Tapping! Rapping! As if testing the boundaries, probing. We checked for animals, for loose boards, for anything that could explain it. Nothing. Our parents came, listened, played prayers from YouTube, and for a moment, the knocking stopped. But then, the trash bag ripped, spilling bones across the floor. I don't know if it was a spirit or a raccoon, but I knew, whatever it was real. The feeling of being watched, it lingered in the room, Even when everything was quiet, even when the lights were on, every creak, every whisper of wind felt like it belonged to someone unseen, someone waiting. I remember lying awake, staring at the ceiling, the shadows from the window stretching, creeping across the walls, shapes forming, dissolving, teasing my imagination. And I wondered, what did it want? Why us? And would it ever leave? Even now, I feel the memory of that knocking, echoing in my mind. That rhythm, slow, insistent, patient, as if the sound itself was alive. A warning, or a message from somewhere beyond. And sometimes, when the wind blows against my window, at night, I swear I hear it. Soft, deliberate tapping. And I remember that feeling of being hunted by something I couldn't see, but couldn't ignore. We live high in the mountains, where the nights already start dropping below freezing. The wind howls through the trees, rattling the windows, carrying whispers, or maybe just my imagination. That night, the power went out, and with it, the heat pump. My husband suggested setting up an old kerosene heater just to keep warm through the night. I'm someone who communicates with spirits, a few household presences, using a pendulum and a letterboard, a way to ask questions and hear answers from beyond. That night, bored, worried about the cold, I pulled out the board, and the pendulum immediately began to spin. Wide circles, fast, desperate. No. Hello, the letters spelled out clearly. And then, danger, fire. My heart sank. Every nerve in my body screaming. I asked, where? Here. The pendulum swung faster. And I asked, what was the danger? Heater, broken leak. I froze, staring at my husband, his face pale. We both realized, if we had used it, it would have started a fire, or worse. The spirits, the unseen, had warned us. An urgent, unmistakable warning. We ran to the basement, checked the kerosene heater, and saw it. A fuel leak, dripping, waiting to ignite. We shut everything down, aired out the hoses, replaced it with something safer. And the spirits faded, leaving the room, heavy, silent, but somehow relieved. I've communicated with these presences for years, but never had one be so clear, so direct. It shook me. A reminder that some things are watching, protecting, warning, even when we think we are alone. I spent the rest of the night sitting by the fire, holding my husband close, thinking about the danger we hadn't even seen, about how easily things could have gone wrong, and about the spirits that sometimes even the most logical among us must acknowledge. Several years later, even after moving to another house, I still think about that night. The cold air, the spinning pendulum, the urgency, the fear, the relief. It's a memory that doesn't fade. And I wonder, how many times do these spirits try to warn us before we notice, and how many times we ignore them and regret it? That night, I learned something important. That some things, some presences, are not malicious, but protective, watching, guiding, waiting for someone to listen. Even now, when the wind whistles through the mountains and the night grows cold, I feel them, the unseen guardians, alert, patient, reminding me that we are never truly alone. Dad, we finally moved into our forever home, or so we thought. At first, everything seemed perfect. Quiet, peaceful, no more fighting for a parking spot at the apartments. No more hearing the neighbors' footsteps. Life finally felt normal, as it should. That peace didn't last. A few weeks after moving in, I was on the phone with my cousin when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of a horse step on our sidewalk. I froze. We lived out in the country, and yes, it could have been a horse. But something about the sound, the timing, the echo in the night, felt off. I looked outside. Nothing. Just the faint glow of the porch light. The sidewalk disappearing into darkness. The next day, while doing yard work, I found something. A horseshoe, half buried under overgrown weeds. I didn't know why, but a chill ran down my spine. It felt like a warning. A symbol, a message. The following weekend, I was on the phone with my cousin again, planning a movie night. It was past midnight, quiet. The house dark except for the soft glow from the hallway light. And then I heard it. My little sisters, crying. From the room next to mine. I didn't say anything, thinking maybe they wanted to sleep with Mom and Dad. But the sound, the tone, didn't match. It was desperate, almost pleading. The next day, I asked my stepmom about it, and her words froze me in place. Your sisters don't sleep in that room. They say the little girls don't let them sleep there at night. I remembered the crying, the tiny, eerie voices echoing through the house, and I couldn't explain it. Even Dad, religious and skeptical, had to see it for himself. One night, while saying the Our Father prayer, he remembers closing the prayer, then nothing. His head pressed to the side of the bed, mumbling in a strange, half-conscious way, as if something was holding him down. Stepmom shoved him, and he finally woke. But the sense of presence, of something unseen, lingered. The air felt heavy. Charged! Alive! We didn't stay long, moving out shortly after. But the memory of that house, the sounds, the feeling of being watched, stayed with me. Even now, I think about that night, the crying, the shadows, the invisible force pressing against my family. And I wonder, do some houses keep the energy of their previous inhabitants? Or do they simply attract the unseen, the restless, the lost? My mom called me, frantic, her voice trembling. She said she saw an apparition, but not just any apparition. She swears it was herself, floating through the house, as her 16-year-old self. For some context, my mom lives in a house we've always known as haunted. The primary presence there is believed to be the previous owner, an older man, a friendly, protective sort. Doors creak open. Footsteps echo through empty halls. Objects sometimes move, but never threatening. Not until now. She described the moment as if reliving it. She was in the living room, the moonlight casting long, strange shadows through the curtains. And then she saw the figure float past the doorway. At first, she thought it was one of her sisters. They looked a lot alike as teenagers. But then, the details, the way the hair fell, the clothes, the face, it was unmistakably her. The apparition, calm, detached, drifting, ignoring everything in the room. And then, fading, disappearing, like smoke into the air. She said it felt different, not like the older man's spirit. Not like a typical haunting. It was personal, connected, protective, watching over her younger self. Her words still haunt me. She didn't acknowledge me, but I felt her presence, like she was guarding me, or maybe reminding me of something. I tried to think logically, but even now, I can't. Was it a doppelganger? A residual haunting? A time slip? Or was it simply a fragment of energy tethered to her younger self? A version of her that never left that moment in time. I asked her what she felt. Fear, shock, confusion? And she said, all of it, but more. A sense of wonder. Like seeing a part of yourself. Long gone, but still here. Even rational explanations fail. And it leaves you wondering, what else is hidden in the corners of that house? What other pieces of time, of people, linger, watching, waiting? She's not easily shaken. Never has been. But this rattled her in a way nothing else ever has. Sometimes she calls me late at night and whispers. I keep seeing her, floating past, just beyond my sight, and I can't help but wonder, are these glimpses, reminders, warnings, or something else entirely? Something beyond our understanding, tethered to time itself. Even now, when I think of that night, the way the living room felt empty, yet full, the shadows twisting unnaturally, I feel a chill, and a sense that some part of ourselves, our past, never really leaves us. When I was about 12, I had an experience that has stayed with me and unsettled me in a way nothing else has. It was a quiet weekend, summer, the sun high in the sky, everyone else outside enjoying the warmth, but I was inside, at the computer, alone, the kind of corner desk that puts your back to the entire living room, leaving you exposed, vulnerable. I don't remember what game I was playing, or maybe I was just browsing, but I had this strong, undeniable sense that someone was there, behind me, watching. At first, I thought it was my younger brother. He must have come inside, standing quietly, observing. I could feel it, the weight of a presence, pressing just behind my left shoulder, and every instinct in me screamed, "Turn, look." I did, and no one was there. I tried to convince myself it was imagination, but the sensation returned, stronger, more insistent. I looked again, still nothing, and fear, cold and sharp, crept through me. I whispered, "Go away," half hoping, half terrified that someone would listen. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, left the desk, went outside into the warmth of the sun, and tried to forget. A few days later, I told my mom, and she listened, carefully, nodding, and then revealed something that shook me even further. She had been seeing a medium, trying to connect with her dead family members. Her mother and father, gone too young. Her older brother, killed in a motorcycle accident, long before I was born. None of them I had ever met, but the medium claimed that her older brother loved technology, computers, watching people interact with them, even in death. He enjoyed observing. I was stunned, realizing that presence I had felt, the cold weight behind me. It wasn't imagination. It was him, watching me, and maybe protecting in his own strange way. I never felt the presence at the computer again. But that feeling, that shadow, the unseen eyes, it has stayed with me, even now, when I hear the faintest click of a keyboard, the whir of a computer fan. I can't help but glance over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone standing there, watching. And I wonder, how many times do we feel watched without realizing the watchers are still here? I keep thinking about a strange sound from my childhood, and lately it's been on my mind more than ever. I'm a 39-year-old woman now, but this story, it takes me back to a tiny, cramped, two-bedroom apartment in Oak Grove, Oregon. Between 1989 and 2001, a place that felt small, but full of life. My mother, my little brother, and me. Sometimes we rented out a bed, someone in need, strangers passing through, but mostly just the three of us. The apartment, small, maybe 900 square feet. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, worn, a little shabby, but it was home. And it was here that the sound began. It wasn't often, but when it happened, everyone heard it, and there was no way to ignore it. Loud, clear, impossible to miss, and strangely, it was never scary. In fact, it often made us laugh. We'd joke, "Hi, ghost," or ask for a roll of toilet paper. Because kids. But the sound, what was it? It only ever happened when someone was in the bathroom, not sitting on the toilet, just there, playing in the mirror, brushing teeth. Doesn't matter. The sound itself was unlike anything I've ever heard. Wet fingers, slowly sliding across a glass window pane. A wet, scratching, dragging sound. Very precise, very deliberate. Every time we'd hear it, we'd rush to the bathroom, expecting something, someone, but no one was there. No marks, no smudges, no evidence. The glass remained clean, untouched, but the sound continued.
In our heads.
Haunting, teasing. We searched, inspected, tried to find a logical explanation. And every time, nothing. No wind, no pipes, no one outside, no prank, no animal, just the sound, repeating, taunting. And here's the strangest part. It never scared us. Not really. We laughed, teased, and tried to talk to it. But inside, a small part of us couldn't shake it, wondering if it was a ghost, a poltergeist, or something else entirely. Even now, when I close my eyes, I can hear it, that wet, slow, sliding sound coming from a window somewhere just beyond reach. Like a presence, lingering, watching, waiting. I've never figured out what it was or why it always happened at that exact moment. But sometimes I wonder, was it a playful spirit, a harmless presence trying to interact, or just a leftover energy, a sound trapped in time, waiting for someone to hear it again? And even as an adult, I find myself listening for that sound, expecting it, hoping, dreading. I was around 10 or 11, a child with a wild imagination, easily scared at night, but also stubborn. I had this little TV I kept running at night, and my parents constantly complained about the power bill, about it affecting the TV, but I didn't care. Not really. That night, I set the TV on a timer like any normal night. I had watched some scary videos earlier that day, but I didn't feel afraid at first. Then, I noticed it, a faint red light, glowing at the end of the hallway. My room was on the right side of the hallway, the living room, straight across from my brother's room. I thought it might be cars outside, headlights shining through the window. But headlights are yellow or white, not red. Confused, I got out of bed, slowly, cautiously, and peeked into the hallway. There she was, an old woman, holding a small red candle in her hand. The light flickered, casting strange shadows across the walls. I froze, my heart hammering. Her face, her posture, it looked exactly like someone I had seen in one of the scary videos earlier. Panic surged through me. I ran back into my room, dove under the covers, eyes fixed on the door, too scared to move, too scared to breathe. What if she saw me? What if she was real? Minutes, or maybe hours, passed, time stretched, warped, each second heavy with dread. Eventually, I gathered courage, crept to my older brother's room. Hoping to sleep there, I peeked into the hallway again, and she was only in the living room now. Still holding that candle, still watching, or maybe just existing. I knocked softly, crying, begging to sleep there. At first, he refused, but his girlfriend said I could, and I slipped inside their pitch-black room, trembling. And just like that, she was gone. No candle, no red glow, nothing. Was it my imagination? The shadow from the video? Or had I truly seen a ghost that night? A real, spectral, old woman, moving silently through our house. Even now, I can feel that fear. The way the light flickered, the way the shadows shifted. The uncertainty, the not knowing, and the strange lingering sense that some things exist right at the edge of our vision and only show themselves when we're most vulnerable. I've never seen her again, but I still remember that night. The red light, the candle, the silent presence, waiting, watching, maybe still there in the hallways of my childhood, hidden, just out of reach, but impossible to forget. I had an experience that felt straight out of a horror movie. It happened one night in New Orleans, in a creepy little bar called the Morgue. I had parked my truck, illegally, 2 blocks away, but I could see it from inside the bar, so I kept an eye on it. Later, someone left, freeing up a legal parking spot, and I told everyone I'd be right back, planning to move the truck. I stepped out into the night. The street was dark, misty, deserted, damp, the kind of darkness that seems to swallow sound. I walked halfway to the truck when I heard it, a metallic, jangling sound, like a chain. I turned slightly and saw him, a short man, barely 5 feet tall, within arm's reach, walking away from me. He wore a wallet chain and spurs on his boots, and his presence felt impossible, uncanny. He seemed to be walking back toward the bar, but it was like he had materialized from nowhere, like he had appeared out of thin air. I blinked, and he was still there, but no one else on the street. No other noises, no movement, just him. My heart pounded, every instinct screamed, but I kept walking toward my truck. I had to move it. I had to finish what I came to do. As I approached the vehicle, my mind raced. What had I just seen? A ghost? A trick of the light? A hallucination caused by the empty streets and mist? It didn't make sense, yet I knew I had seen something. Impossible. Real. I got to the truck, moved it into the legal space. No other encounters, no more appearances, but the image of that small man, walking against logic, against reality, stuck with me, even now, when I think of that night. The misty street, the silent darkness, and that inexplicable presence. I can still feel it. The metallic jangle, the sense that something, was walking right beside me, but unseen, not quite of this world. It was a reminder that some nights, some streets, are not as empty as they seem, and some presences are closer than we dare to imagine. I had the opportunity to stay at one of the most haunted places in England, Chillingham Castle, a castle drenched in centuries of death, blood, and tragedy, where history isn't just in the walls. It lingers, it breathes, it watches. I stayed in one of the few apartments visitors can use. The lookout. The bedrooms felt oppressive, heavy, the kind of air that presses against your chest. So I chose to sleep in the living room, hoping for a more neutral energy. Within the first hour, it happened. A child's giggle, soft, almost innocent, but echoing with an eerie clarity. It was enough to make the hairs on my neck rise. The castle was alive, listening, watching, waiting. By 10 p.m., the ghost hunt began. Orbs, shadows, noises. Every corner seemed to hum with unseen life. We moved through the castle, carefully, the floorboards groaning under each step, visiting the hallways, torture devices, the forest outside, and King Edward's bedroom. I was part of something called the Estes method in the hall, a dual experiment, where 2 of us would attempt to communicate with spirits. I could hear responses, whispers, even curses, while my aunt received nothing, as if the castle itself decided who could hear, who could not. Tall shadow figures, lurking in King Edward's bedroom. A string on a lute snapped, suddenly, sharply, in the silence. Whistling, drifting through the forest, chilling, haunting. I was used as a human pendulum experiment, and everyone heard the movement, except me. as if the spirits intentionally bypassed my senses. Chillingham Castle isn't just haunted. It's alive with memory, sorrow, rage, lingering energy. Even the walls, thick stone and ancient mortar, seem to hum with stories of the past. Torture, death, whispers of prisoners long gone, and the spirits. They don't rest, not for a second. Being there, walking through the halls, touching the cold ancient stones, it's beautiful and terrifying. The forest surrounding it, quiet, save for the occasional whistling, as if the wind itself carries the voices of the lost. If you ever go to Chillingham Castle, prepare yourself, because the spirits are active all day, every day. And once you feel their presence, once you see shadows that move on their own, you will understand that some places never let go of the dead, never let go of the memories, never let go of you. I grew up in a small town in northern Idaho, population around 4,000, an hour from Lewiston, a big farming and ranching community. Most of the houses in town were over a century old, and the newer ones, further out, had a little more land, a little more space. But my childhood home was a big blue house, just one street off Main Street, a 10-minute walk from the local public park and pool. Even as a kid, I could feel the history in that house. It was old, maybe 130 years or more, and the walls seemed to hold memories. I don't know if anyone had died there, or if anything had been done to invite spirits. But the energy was heavy, intense, lingering. During winter, the street lamps glowed orange, deep golden, and on cloudy nights, with snow on the ground, the light bounced off everything, casting a surreal, eerie glow across the street. I loved it, even as a kid, but on that night, it made everything feel strange, alive. My bedroom was in the back corner, downstairs. I hated the upstairs. It felt too open, too exposed. 2 large windows, one looking out into the backyard, one into a smaller side yard. I was lying in bed, turned toward the side yard window, and I saw it. The perfect silhouette of a man, chest up, staring in. I froze, heart hammering. Breath caught. I did the classic kid move, hiding under the covers, peeking out, and when I peeked, he was gone, vanished, into the night. No face, no clothing, just black, a silhouette, impossibly positioned, because the window, too high for any man, even 6'2", to reach the height he appeared to be at. No footprints in the snow, no evidence, just the memory of that shadow. That one moment, closer than anything else I experienced there. Everyone in the house might see shadows or fleeting figures. But this was different. I can't remember if I ever told my parents. If I did, they probably would have blamed it on a ghost boy, something they could laugh off, explain away. But for me, that silhouette, that perfect black watching shape, was real, and it stayed with me long after I left that room. Even now, thinking back, I can still feel that chill. The way the light from the street bent across the snow, casting long dark shadows, and how alive, how aware that house felt, like something unseen was always just beyond sight, and watching, waiting. I was around 14 years old, sharing a room with my brother, so I know this actually happened. Not imagination, not a dream, but real. It was late at night. We were getting ready for bed. The kind of quiet where you can hear the clock ticking, and every creak in the house seems louder. We were just settling down, lights dimmed, when it began. A knock at the window, soft, deliberate at first, and I ignored it, thinking it was just a branch or the wind. But then it happened again, and this time it didn't sound like the wind or a branch. It sounded human, a hand knocking, slowly, firmly. I looked over at my brother, his eyes wide, We both knew it wasn't normal. I approached the curtains, slowly, cautiously, parting them, expecting to see someone, anyone, but there was nothing. I tried to convince myself, it's the wind, it's nothing. But my body knew better. My heart pounding, my stomach twisted into knots. We decided to sleep in another room, but the next night, it didn't stop. The knocking shifted, moving from the window to my bed frame. I tried to find a logical explanation. No critters, no loose boards, nothing. The knocking continued, rhythmic, intentional. And I realized we were not alone. We called our parents. They came and waited with us. And the knocking happened again. They heard it too, in desperation. They played a prayer from YouTube, and for a while, it seemed to stop, at least for that night. But later, we discovered something strange. The trash bag ripped, bones spilling out. Was it a raccoon? Possibly, but it felt deliberate, like the presence wanted to be noticed, wanted to scare. I've never forgotten that feeling. The sensation of being watched, of someone or something standing just out of sight, waiting for the right moment. The fear, the uncertainty, it lingered long after the knocking stopped. Even now, when I hear a knock at the window, my heart races, and I remember that night, the presence that was impossible to ignore, that something could enter your space and be so real, so close, without ever being seen. We live up in the mountains, where nights drop below freezing, harsh, relentless, and the wind whistles through the trees, like it's speaking. It was one of those nights. Cold, dark. The power had gone out, along with our heat pump, leaving the house still and frigid. My husband said he'd set up an old kerosene heater overnight to keep us warm. I was alone in the living room, bored, worried about the cold, and pulled out my pendulum and letterboard. I've communicated with household spirits for years, but this night, it felt different, tense, urgent. The pendulum started spinning. Immediately, wide circles. The letters came through fast, forming words, messages. No, hello, danger, fire. My heart sank. The town had been experiencing a string of arson attacks that week, and I asked, where? The pendulum spelled here. I asked what the danger was. Heater, broken, leak. My husband came into the room, watching, pale. We rushed to the basement, checked the kerosene heater, and discovered a fuel leak, a mistake that could have ignited a fire, or worse. We shut everything down, aired the hoses out, replaced the heater with a safer option, but the feeling lingered. The spirits had warned us. Clear, urgent, undeniable. I still can't explain it logically, but that night, I realized these presences weren't just watching, they were protecting, guiding, even intervening. Several years after moving into that house, I still remember the icy fear of that night, the weight of the message, and the gratitude that we were alive, because someone or something had warned us in time. Even now, I hesitate with any new heater. Every creak, every shadow reminds me of that night when the spirit spoke, and we listened.